We'll call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, April 20th, 2023. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Crowell, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Knobloch.
Here.
Commissioner Heikkila.
Here.
Commissioner Bradley, not here. Commissioner Casey.
Here.
Commissioner Schmolke.
Here.
Commissioner Geisler.
Here.
And Chair Schwartz.
Here. Thank you. Before we begin the meeting this evening, let's congratulate Mr. Brown on his appointment to, your title is what?
Community Development Director. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, our first order of business this evening is to adopt our agenda.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Heikkila, second by Geisler. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. Next, we have the approval of the minutes of our March 16th, 2023 meeting.
Chair Schwartz,
Commissioner Knobloch.
I propose that we approve the minutes from the previous meetings from March 16th.
Second.
Motion by Knobloch, second by Casey. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And
Abstain, one abstention.
minutes are approved with one abstention. Commissioner Heikkila. First order of business this evening is planning case 23-8, a rezoning for Cedarwood at 9730 University Avenue Northwest, Value Homes LLC. Mr. Kroll.
All right. Good evening, Commission. So tonight we have kind of two cases related to one another, 28-8, which is the rezoning, and then 23-9 is the site plan. So I'm just going to give a project overview that kind of covers both of the cases first, and then I'll just present on the rezoning. We'll go through the public hearing, kind of the pause, and then we'll come back to the site plan there. I think just there's a little bit more involvement here, and it'll be easier to break it up that way. So first, just to kind of give a project overview for both applications. The applicant is looking to build an 8-unit residential development at 9730 University Ave. The subject parcel is about 0.91 acres, and it did have a single-family home on the lot that has since been raised, so it's a current vacant parcel. The applicant's proposing to construct 8 high-quality homes on the site called Cedarwood, and that each unit would have 3-bed, 3-bath, a deck, and a 2-car garage. There's also a courtyard and open yard to provide amenity space for residents on the site as well, and that it would provide rental homes with the goal for long-term ownership and management by Value Homes LLC. And so this site is currently zoned low density residential 2, and so the rezoning tonight is to rezone to high density residential for the 8-unit development. This is just a aerial of the site here. So there was that single family home kind of in the center of the lot, and that's since been raised. Just to kind of give an idea of street view, again, that single family home is no longer there, but just to kind of give an idea, this is looking off of University Ave at the site today. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about the site plan in the next case, but just for reference here, just to give you an idea of how the 8 units would lay out on the site. There's a shared driveway that offers right-in and right-out access off of University Ave, and then there is parking wouldn't be allowed on that shared driveway to maintain fire access, and then there's individual driveways that lead to the 2-car garage there for each unit. You can see the courtyard kind of in the lower left corner. There's sidewalk around to connect to the guest parking and driveway area to the kind of front doors of each unit that have a covered porch. And then there's also stormwater management that would be on the site and portions of the open space there as well. So we'll kind of go into a little bit more detail in the next case, but just to give you an idea there of the site. And then again, to kind of give you an idea of each unit, there's a little over 3,200 square feet of living space in each unit. So there's a basement level that's kind of used as kind of a half bath and flex space, about 500 square feet. The first level is where that garage access is and the main door that goes into the kitchen, dining room, and living room. The second level here has the bedrooms and bathrooms that then leads out onto a privacy deck on each unit. And then that third level is just kind of used as flex space for applicants there to increase the living space of the unit. This was a rendering provided by the applicant just to kind of give you an idea. Again, we'll go into this in a little bit more detail in the site plan portion, but they're using kind of wood siding. That's the cedar color there at the top, and then a kind of black coloring on the bottom for kind of a more modern aesthetic of the building. And then in case you're familiar at all, just south of this site on 97th and University, there's similar properties that have a very similar layout, just to kind of give you an idea of what the building would be on this site is very similar to what's at 97th and University Ave. And so just to talk a little bit about the rezoning specifically, again, in order to accommodate this kind of project, the applicant is requesting the rezoning to high-density residential. This subject property also has a future land use designation of commercial mixed use. And kind of given the surrounding land uses, that future land use designation of the site, and then kind of that condition of that existing single-family home that's since been torn down, it seems or appears unlikely that the property would develop as a new single-family home or remain that LDR2 in the long term, I think, with that designation. And here staff will kind of talk about, believes there's policy support in our 2040 plan with that designation, that this rezoning would get us more in alignment to that 10 to 50 units an acre that commercial mixed use allows for or needs. And so when you're looking at a rezoning, there's kind of three criteria that you're asked to evaluate. So the first being the effect of the rezoning on public health, safety, and general welfare. Here, staff believes that the rezoning wouldn't create any concerns. This site has been zoned and used for residential purposes, and the rezoning would bring this site to a similar density and kind of intensity of housing that's surrounding the parcel. It's sandwiched between office and general commercial uses and high-density residential already. And so this just kind of makes the parcel a little bit more compatible with the intensity of uses that you see there. And so the second item is looking at the rezoning and its effect on present and potential surrounding land uses. So like I mentioned, the parcel is kind of outlined here in the black lining. So you have office to the north, general commercial and high-density residential to the south. These kind of two parcels here are actually 12.5 units an acre. And then to the west it's a PUD zoning that's very similar to our moderate density residential kind of density. So there it's 6 units an acre. And then to the east of the site, this is the city of Blaine. That's predominantly single family homes there. And so again, kind of like we talked about, this rezoning, I think, brings the parcel to similar densities that you see around the site and kind of similar intensity of uses there. And then finally, looking at the rezoning and its whether it kind of conforms to our city's comprehensive land use plan. Here again, staff find that there is policy support in our 2040 plan for the rezoning. Kind of as we've mentioned on other projects, that Coon Rapids is a nearly fully developed community, and so a lot of our land use policies have to focus on redevelopment priorities, changes to residential densities, and infill development, to which this project aligns. That future land use designation of commercial mixed use foresees 10 to 50 units an acre in those areas. This brings it closer. It's still under at about 8.7 units an acre with this proposal. And then finally, there are some specific land use policies and housing policies from our 2040 plan that I think offer support for the rezoning. And so kind of with that, staff recommendation tonight is to recommend approval of the rezoning based on the following findings that you see in your packet. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we do have the applicant here as well if you have questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. Commission, any questions for Mr. Kroll on the rezoning? Is there anything the petitioner would like to add? Is there anything you'd like to add? If so, please come up to the microphone, give your name and address for the record.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Eric Oldested with Value Homes, and the address is 144 154th Avenue Northwest in Andover, Minnesota, 55304. And basically the idea here is to have a nice family community, Cedarwood. There's big overstory trees that are actually cedar trees, and then bringing that in, keeping as many as we can, and having the cedarwood color on the LP smart siding throughout. Mainly you see vinyl siding for cost, but at Value Homes, the whole thing, the motto is quality living from people who care. We have over 81 doors operating currently, self-managed, and our whole idea is just nice homes, the best service. We want to be on top of all maintenance requests, things like that. So we're trying to give a really good living experience, and that property 2 lots down at 24 to 46 97th Avenue is also something that was purchased by Value Homes, my company, in late 2021. We've totally turned it around, put a lot of money into it, did a major renovations on the units that we could, and now we're up to 5 full renovations, and all 9 of the 12 residents stayed with us, and we addressed a lot of different things that somebody didn't have a furnace working for 5 years, they said. So we got them repaired that, or I don't know if I think we actually got them a new furnace. But the point is that I'm from Blaine. That's my family right there. I went to Blaine High School. I went to Roosevelt Middle School. Lived in Blaine since the Ham Lake, Blaine area, since I was in middle school, and then have been here ever since. And now we live in Andover. We just moved about a year and a half ago. Love the community, Anoka County. I don't plan on doing this as an investment to sell or anything like that. It's just wanting to provide family community. From the experience I've had at just 2 lots down at those townhomes, I've learned that there's a huge demand for larger homes that can house a family with children, pets. We're very pet friendly, and I would love the opportunity to make this Cedarwood a reality, and it would be very high-end, modern construction, modern finishes and design, and we're typically, builders try to do everything as cheap as possible to have the lowest price point in general. That's one way to do it, whereas I try to do things very nice, what I would like to have in a home, and it's been a great success so far doing things that way. Spending more money, like the LP smart siding on the whole thing, is probably double what you could do with vinyl siding or more, and that's just kind of the motto that I want to carry for this development. We'd have a very nice 6-foot privacy fence surrounding the entire thing, even thinking about a electric gate to enter the area. And I think that Coon Rapids, I've just kind of fallen in love with the idea of doing things in Coon Rapids. I went to the class to get the rental license that's mandatory, and met some officers and different people in the city, and it was a great experience, and I just thought, wow, I'd love to do more. And then when this came up, I jumped on it, and here we are. So do you guys have any questions for me?
Thank you. Commission, any questions for the petitioner? All right, thank you. We may have questions later.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we do need a public hearing on this matter, so at this time, I will open a public hearing. in planning case 23-8, the rezoning for Cedarwood at 9730 University Avenue Northwest, Value Homes LLC. Anyone wish to speak to the public hearing on just the rezoning? Please come to the microphone, give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Kyle Stevens. I'm the pastor of Blessed Hope Baptist Church, which is just to the north of that property. Our only concern is that there might be a privacy fence put up, which I believe the gentleman might have mentioned. For security, there's foot traffic there, and just for liability issues, we would like a guarantee of there being a privacy fence put up between our property and theirs.
All right, that'd be more directed at the
Okay.
site plan rather
Okay.
than the zoning. but-
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and limit comments to the commission. Mr. Kroll, I have a question. Both our information in the packet and comments you made, and again, this was probably more for the Plat, but I'll bring it up anyway. You listed as 3-bedroom, 3 baths, but the slide that you showed it as a 3-bed, 2.5 bath. And I think the basement or garage level there just shows a half bath. So is it a 3 bath or a 2.5 bath?
3. Okay. Yeah, it looks like, I think I had 3 in my initial comment. It looks like maybe on that basement level, it's more like a stand-up shower than a tub there. So it's kind of, let's see if I can get the mouse. Kind of down in the corner here, there'd be the stand-up shower, toilet, and sink on
Okay.
that basement level. So it is a little bit smaller, but I guess 3 full bath.
All right, thank you.
Yep, yeah.
And Commission, anyone else have anything? Do you have anyone
I
for a
will make-
motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. In planning case 23-8, I'll recommend approval of the proposed rezoning based on the following findings. That the proposed rezoning would not have an adverse impact on the surrounding area. The proposed rezoning is compatible with adjacent land uses and zoning, and the proposed rezoning is consistent with future land use guidance and policies of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
Motion by Schmolke, second by Geisler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And this is a recommendation by the Planning Commission and will be introduced by the City Council at their May 2nd meeting. Second case we have this evening is a companion case, planning case 23-9 for the site plan for Cedarwood at 9730 University Avenue Northwest, Value Homes. Mr. Kroll.
All right, yeah, so thanks, Commission. So kind of just jump right into the site plan itself. So as I had mentioned earlier, in terms of circulation and access, this would be a right-in, right-out along University Ave. University Ave is under the jurisdiction of Anoka County. We did share these plans with the Highway Department for some initial comments. They felt comfortable kind of closing the existing driveway and moving it to the new location and allowing that right-in, right-out. They also didn't have any concerns or would require a turn lane off of University Ave, that shoulder kind of provides some sufficient room to allow for vehicle turning in and out of the site. There, as I mentioned as well, there's individual driveways that are just a little over 18 feet in length for each unit. and then 2 guest parking stalls. In the high-density residential, we currently require 2.25 stalls a unit. So for a total of 18 stalls, and at least 2 of those had to be that guest parking. So that's where you see those 2 parking spaces in each garage, and then some additional room in that driveway if someone needed to kind of park a vehicle in their individual driveway there, to more than enough to accommodate folks on the site. And then again, that shared driveway would not be open to parking to ensure adequate fire access into and out of the site. In terms of some of the dimensional requirements, looking at building height, lot coverage, those minimum development and floor areas that we require in HDR, that this would comply. You'll notice there is a condition in the site plan approval for one of the setbacks, and that's for the building from an arterial street right-of-way, which requires 50 feet, and here this building would be 41 feet. So the applicant is working on a variance application, and that would go to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals on May 4th, and would be a condition of any approval tonight. We'll talk about this more, and that's kind of a board decision on the variance itself, but just to give a little context there for you all, with the rezoning of HDR, and on this site, it creates 50-foot setbacks on 3 of the 4 sides, which is just really kind of a challenge for development on this site. And so that's where kind of lots of work went in with the applicant and trying to figure out how to avoid a variance or how you can make it work on the site. And I think we ultimately landed, or were comfortable kind of moving forward with that 41 foot setback there. And then, let's see. Again, there's sidewalk circulation all around from the driveways and parking area to each of the units. Open yard in front of each unit. There'll be a courtyard to provide outdoor amenity, and then there'll be some stormwater ponding on the site as well. Looking at the landscape plan, our code would require 10 overstory trees, 11 ornamental trees, 6 evergreens, and 34 shrubs. And here the applicant is meeting that minimum by both planting new trees and then preserving a number of existing trees on the site as well. So you can kind of see trees kind of providing some buffer in between the lots to the north and south. And as the applicant mentioned, looking at putting a privacy fence around the site as well to provide some additional buffering. And then the shrubs are around the proposed monument sign at the entrance, and then in this smaller landscape detail here, the shrubs kind of at each entry of the unit to get to the 32. Looking at the elevations, as the applicant had mentioned, using kind of that LP smart siding to give a vertical cedarwood colored wood on the top, and then that horizontal kind of black colored panels along the bottom to create a more modern aesthetic. You'll notice another condition with the approval. In our HDR standards, our building materials are much more aligned kind of with our commercial and industrial zoning districts, and the materials that we allow that are a lot more aligned with kind of apartment buildings or larger developments than what this is providing. I think this is pretty standard that you'd see on a more townhome style design, and as the applicant mentioned, is a little bit more of a hardier material than just vinyl siding. And so staff, we were comfortable with this design, and that there is language in the code for HDR that the city council can approve a variation in materials. So when it would be brought forth with the rezoning, we would ask the council to consider this mix of materials on the building as well. So this is the kind of front elevation of the building, what you would kind of see from the church and the parking lot to the north with the garages and the privacy decks here. This left elevation is really kind of what you would see from University Ave. And then this kind of the rear elevation that has the kind of front door to the units is kind of what you'd see to the high density and general commercial to the south of the site there. Again, just some additional renderings provided by the applicant to kind of give you an idea of what those building materials look like. So again, this is that view kind of from the church and parking lot with the garages and deck. And then the image earlier, kind of the front of the building. So kind of with that, staff here is recommending approval of the site plan with the conditions that are outlined in your packet. I'll just kind of, again, highlight there's the rezoning that would still need to be approved by the city council. There is a variance, and then that building material approval from city council as well. So happy to answer any questions, and again, the applicant's here if you have additional questions on the site plan.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. Commissioner, any questions for Mr. Kroll?
Chair Schwartz.
Commissioner Knobloch?
I got a couple questions for Mr. Kroll. In regards to the infiltration basins, there's a A and a B, one in the northwest and one in the south along University, the southeast. Now, are those pretty standard and those meet with engineering requirements?
Yeah, our engineering staff did review those plans, and I think they had a few, I know they have their comments that are attached to the, kind of to the agenda packet. I guess I'm not recalling off the top of my head if there were any concerns with the infiltration basin in those comments. I know working with our city engineer, he didn't share any concerns with me. But if there were, they're all kind of listed out in those engineering comments in the packet. No? Okay.
Another question I have is in regards to, am I missing it in the package, like a more detailed vegetation on the trees and the tree types? And I think in your presentation you outlined on the north where the potential for a privacy fence was discussed by some people. But I see on the south end there's some existing trees. So are those to be included in remaining, or will there be additional green or trees, and what type of trees, what size on the floor plan? Because I don't see a detailed green like.
Sure. Yeah, so in terms of the existing trees on the site, those are kind of these kind of faded outline trees are those existing that would stay. So there's a couple of oak trees and then predominantly those cedar trees, kind of where the name for the project is coming from. And then all of the kind of heavier, darker outlined circles here are going to be new trees that are planted. And there should be, I believe on the next page in that packet, there's a landscape detail. But maybe it got missed.
Okay, well.
Yeah, here I have it here. So these smaller circles up at the north end of the site are Japanese lilacs that are proposed, and then on the southern portion here, these larger circles, those are Black Hill spruce trees that are proposed.
Okay. And my last question for you, Mr. Kroll. So clarify on the southwest corner of the lot, some screens say courtyard, some say basketball court, playground. Can I have some more specificity of what kind of play or just general outdoor space for the potential residents?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'll kind of touch on it a little bit, and then the applicant might have some additional items. So when we were working with the applicant in their initial application, they were proposing a basketball court as an amenity on that corner. And then I think after kind of working with the applicant on kind of moving the building around as it relates to that variance and some of the stormwater that was needed, I think we just ultimately determined that the basketball court probably just couldn't fit on the site. And so it's that courtyard that you see on the site plan is what's proposed. And so this was just the basketball court was just shown on the landscape plan, but that is old, and the correct amenities, that courtyard. So.
or a pickleball court. Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Schmolke.
Mr. Kroll, just a clarification, in the packet for the recommendation, it does reference case 22-9 and approval in planning case 22-8, I believe. It should be 23-9 and 23-8.
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for catching that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kroll, question on garbage collection. Is there gonna be one trash receptacle for the entire 8 units, or is each unit gonna have their own trash receptacles?
Yeah, it is my understanding that each unit would have their own kind of separate garbage receptacle that will be there. So there can be 8 separate smaller garbage cans for each unit.
And so then the trash trucks, I would imagine, would have to drive in and then back all the way out and back out onto University Avenue?
Yeah, I guess I'm not quite sure if they would just be at their driveway or if they'd be wheeled down to University Ave. I'm just not aware of what that process would look like.
All right,
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Schmolke.
I would recommend that we address that. It's, especially if there's at all consideration of the canisters being on University Avenue, you want to make sure they can't fall into the street, things like that, and cause issues. So I think we do need to address that.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey.
So, Mr. Kroll, my understanding is the drive into the driveway will go to the only driveway in goes to the back of the units with the deck and the garages. There's no traffic in the front of those units, right? There's just no access.
Yeah, that's correct. There's no vehicle access in the front of those units. There is the sidewalk around the building for people to walk, and then it's, intended to be open yard
It's
in that
green
front.
space
Yep,
for each unit.
yep, that's correct.
Okay, and then one other question on the landscaping. The 11 Japanese lilacs, will they be, provided this privacy fence is a thing, that will be north of the Japanese lilacs, is that right? So it'll be kind of surrounding the landscaping, et cetera.
Yeah, that would be my understanding of, I guess I'm not a landscape architect to know if there's enough room there, but it would, the idea would be the fence would be kind of north of those trees there.
Truly a privacy fence and then encompassing the whole property. Are there any amenities planned for that courtyard then?
Yeah, I think that would be a question for the applicant.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure.
I was thinking like a fire pit or something like that, but
Sure.
just, we hadn't heard anything about that.
Sure.
Sure.
So the idea is to have kind of one area with some seating, fire pit, barbecue grill, 1 or 2 of those, and maybe like a pergola type thing over there. So we're gonna make it really nice. Originally with basketball court, and then as just we were working through it, it was just like, sounds like it's better off just being green space and some pavers with, the more, originally I wanted to have 2 courtyard areas, and it was like, oh, infiltration basins, there goes that type of thing. So we will have it a really neat area of just, like I said, grill, fire pit, some seating, the overhead, kind of those deals that you see at Costco as far as the pergola, with some pavers and probably some durable outdoor furniture type of area. And then also mainly grass there too. And then as far as the garbage cans, it would require that, so this is gonna be, we're working through with the fire marshal, and part of this will be that we'll require like a hammerhead deal here for turnaround. And they've already stated that they're fine with that because we're doing a 13D, I believe, sprinkler system, or R, sorry. So we're doing the 13R, which is much more elaborate, and therefore we're able to make this happen with kind of a gravel turnaround area. So I think, and this is 24 feet, so I'm sure he can, just by going in a little bit, turn around, and then not have to back into university. And I don't plan on having any cans here, because that seems just like trouble to me. So if the residents will just have, there's a big service door, because these are big garages, these is 24 wide. So it gives them an 18-foot garage door plus a 3-foot service door, and they can go in and out with their cans right here. And that's exactly what happens at the other development with the 12 homes. They just each have their own, usually in the garage, and then they roll it out to this is their private driveway, and this is the shared. So then you just see garbage and recycling kind of right on the edge here. And this is curb and gutter right here. The garbage truck picks it up and then turn around there and heads out.
One other thought, when you were talking about this 13R, is that our sprinkler system in the interior?
Yep.
And the fire department approves that and will,
Yeah,
they look more favorably on that?
Yeah.
Because, and so they give you a break on the turnaround space?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
If you're able to do the more elaborate sprinkler system, which includes in the attics, and it's just a safer route, and then you're able to get a little bit more flexibility on the turnaround.
Okay.
And Dakota could speak to more of that if needed.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Geisler.
Thank you.
just a couple questions for the applicant here. So the driveways that you have in front of there, so there are no delineations between the units on the driveway? It's just one, there's not like a rock path or shrubs or anything delineating the lines between the units?
Yeah, so like here, I mean, there could be, the other development doesn't have anything. So sometimes it's when you have something in there, it gets a little bit unmaintained, it gets a little dirty or messy with whatever, if you have rock or mulch or whatever, it kind of gets off of there and into the driveway. And this kind of seems to be, and especially snow plowing too, this seems to be the simplest, cleanest way to do it.
Okay, and then on that note, so you'll have contracted plowing and maintenance for the site?
Yep.
And then as far as garbage collection, are you doing one service for all the units, or are the tenants allowed to pick their own?
The idea is one service, and then it's just what we normally do to prevent, like the tenants getting it, and then who pays what, and this is different, it's just like one. And then we charge them a flat fee to try to cover the cost of it. And it's just like city, sewer, water, trash, recycling, $100 a month or whatever that is. And then that's it. And then we pay it, and just keeps it simple and easy. And there's no discrepancies from tenant to tenant to tenant.
Good, and then my final one, you mentioned, potentially considering a gate here. I would just say, make sure that the highway department is comfortable with any delayed entry off of University. We don't want to interrupt any traffic flow on University. That's a car accident waiting to happen if we're waiting for something to open. So however, if you're considering that, just make sure that your traffic flow is uninterrupted for people coming in and out of there.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as before I got up here, like the gate, where would it go? And thinking it would almost have to be here, and the fence, because it'd be nice if the fence was out here, just to give more, instead of here, just to give a little more room for the more green space for the residents. So therefore, if it's going like this, and this, and then you go down, and then perhaps here, depending on how many feet between University and this area. But I would definitely want it to where somebody could pull up, get off of University before the gate opens. And it might just be open without the gate if it gets too complicated. But at least that way, nobody could just stumble in except through the driveway,
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey.
I had one more question. It was mentioned these are rentals?
Yeah.
rent to own then? Is that a process? Or do they stay under the same management?
It's just same management, all one PID is the idea, just long-term rentals. And with what's happening and with the rates, obviously, interest rates and affordability, and this just becomes a lot more affordable versus buying. And a lot of people prefer the rent in this environment anyway. And, I mean, eventually you could, individually, parcel them off and go through that. The idea here was just to have one rental community that's just one property and a little different than, so they're not townhomes. It's just basically like an apartment building, except we call them row homes, essentially.
Okay, so they're really not to purchase, they're rentals.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Heckler?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering what Commissioner Casey, I was kind of wondering about that too, if it's going to be totally rental. And you kind of made that clear. I'm kind of wondering a little bit, with 8 units and 3 bedrooms, there probably will be a lot of children. And where is that courtyard area enough space for, I don't know, what would be 16, 18 kids to play in?
Well, I mean, there's also, so these, so this whole area, the infiltration deal, I mean, it's not like you can't never go on it or anything. It's just stormwater drainage. So then, but you do have all this, and every single one has a big backyard too. So they could, we're not gonna have fences in between each home, so they could have a full football game here, or 2 of them, And then here you got the courtyard area as well, and then infiltration, and then you can easily, walk onto the big boulevard here, and
So that area down there on the bottom, now when I drove by there and looked at all of the trees that had the orange tape around them, I'm assuming those are the ones that you're saving.
yeah, exactly.
And so that would be area where the kids could hang out and
Oh, yeah.
whatever too then. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be nice, because then just combining all these yards, they'll be friends and stuff, and they can certainly have a lot of room to roam.
Okay, my second thing is, I'm not real excited about this black. I just.
It looks, it's kind of a very popular right now. I know there's a building in Coon Rapids that did like all black, and looks kind of cool, but this will have, I don't know if I can get back to the rendering. So you do have, so the garage doors, on this side, toggle back, okay. So with this area, with the cedarwood, and then these are gonna be like light white oak color garage doors. And the decks will be kind of a cedar type color. So the black is gonna be in there, however, you're gonna lighten it up with that too. And then here, this just looks a little dark on this shot, but in person, it'll be super sharp. And then, I mean, the only other option is if you did like a bronze or something. But I think it'll definitely look nice in person. And then, like I said, you got a lot of the cedarwood color will be a really nice contrast.
Yeah, it's a very nice looking building, but I just kind
I
of
know,
wondered a
it's-
little bit about the black.
Yeah, it's modern, it's, contemporary, but the ones that I've seen is super sharp. Because you see a lot of the white, modern, and that, contemporary being white with black windows. But I just felt for this look, like this area, and with the church there, and with the cedarwood trees and all that, I just felt like a darker color is gonna fit better than just doing white,
Chair
Mr.
Schwartz.
Can I follow up with Don?
Commissioner Casey?
I too thought it was a bit monochromatic, looking at it, this rendering. What we see on the screen is a little different, but I think the fact that the window frames are black and the front doors are black, that just makes it all black. And that struck me too, that it's kind of monochromatic. Modern, black is.
I know we can definitely lighten the doors. We can do that any color we want. And then these doors as well on the other side. So, and then there's these, trying to see if I can get a closer look at these columns. But they could also, so you got these columns here. So those could just be like a natural cedar color, so then that'll lighten this up too, because right now these are black, and I don't, that's just what the rendering guy did. So we'll definitely lighten it up with some more cedar look down here, and then the doors could get lightened up too.
Yeah, and that might improve that look on this side, and the garages on the other side, you had those doors as a different color.
Yeah, so
Which
here,
breaks up the eyes, what we're seeing, so like that.
yeah, this definitely makes it better.
I don't know, I hear what you're saying, though, about the look. Black is modern. This might just be a whole slew of black,
Yeah, we'll
right at the
lighten-
front doors.
No, it's duly noted, and we can definitely work on that.
Where would they have, just one more thing on that.
Mr.
I'm sorry.
Michael?
Where would they get their mail?
So the mail would generally be in the front. Actually, the other one has a mailbox with keys in one station just inside the development. So it's either going to be that or have a mailbox here on right outside their garage entry area, right by the driveway. So the mail person could easily throw it in one of these spots if we do it individual.
Because there's no driving on the other side, right? I mean.
Right, yeah. And everybody, I mean, the residents will go in
The
primarily
garages.
on this side.
Yeah.
So they'll use the garage or that service door, and then they can grab their mail. Or if it does need to be one big station, then we could have something, probably, around here, right there, I would imagine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Mr. Kroll, I imagine we don't have any materials boards with actual colors?
I don't have a material board for you tonight. It's just kind of these renderings. Definitely something we can look at. As I mentioned, like these materials do have to get approved by the city council. So with the council really kind of having more discretion on these materials, I'll have a board for them. I can work with you to get that.
Because again, that tends to point out our request for having material boards, so we have determinations on colors, because at this point, we don't.
Yeah, I'd certainly try to work with applicants to get that, and sometimes we're able to, sometimes it's more just these high detailed renderings and showing the colors. Kind of just depends on the applicant. Sometimes it's a little harder to put that board together.
And then back to the petitioner, I think, the patios are all open. Would that allow the residents to have barbecues on their patios or not?
Yeah, I mean, as long as but
Does that
generally
mean-
not on the deck, but on more here in their front in this area. Because I know the city of Coon Rapids doesn't allow barbecue grills on decks, so then they would have to do it out here somewhere. Or on the drive, I've seen some people on the driveway too. So they do have space for it. But then they'll have a couple of barbecue grills way out here for the courtyard deal.
It's more of a fire code issue than a zoning code issue.
Yeah.
And then, Mr. Kroll, this turnaround we're talking about for the trash trucks, that's not really shown on any of our plans here.
Yeah, that is correct. On this site plan, there is not a turnaround provided, so, yeah, what the applicant is mentioning is, not shown here. I don't believe we need a turnaround. As you mentioned, I worked with the fire marshal, on whether a turnaround is needed for fire truck access, and because they're gonna have an upgraded sprinkler system, that 13R, that helps waive or give more flexibility on needing that turnaround, so there is not a turnaround on this driveway.
I'm just thinking more for the trash trucks. The trash trucks pick up on the right side. So they're either gonna have to drive in and turn around somehow so that they can pick up, or they're gonna have to back out or back in.
Yeah, Matt, maybe you have a
Yeah,
Thought,
I think,
but-
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, as the applicant implied, that fire code review is kind of ongoing, just because more of the fire code things relate to the building itself. But I think it would be fair, and since the applicant is amenable and is continuing to work with the fire department on it, if you wanted to add a condition that relates to just ensuring that, that garbage trucks have the ability to turn around so they don't need to back out. I think that would be fair. It seems like things are headed in that direction anyway, that there is some area for that turnaround to occur.
Mr. Chair.
So you're saying that we would add a condition number 8 to allow for a turnaround for trash trucks?
That
Yeah, or
is
just-
fair if you're, if that gives you an additional level of comfort. Otherwise, it does seem like that conversation with the fire department is headed in that direction anyway.
I guess I'd just add, usually that is sometimes in our engineering comments too, that they request those kind of turning templates for trucks, and I don't believe that was there. So that's another way, I guess, to maybe phrase that in as the condition that the applicant can continue to work with staff on kind of that turnaround or circulation for garbage trucks.
Chair Schwartz?
I think we had Commissioner Schmolke here first.
Mr. Brown, isn't it sometimes with the trash companies, don't they actually have to work with the trash companies? Do they have sometimes a requirement, a minimum requirement to be able to access trash cans? So maybe it's, I just, in terms of how we word this, again, I think, kind of like the idea of, that the circulation be addressed in terms of trash removal, mail, even the mail, and the fact that there's going to be a gate, right? You do want to make sure that if the garbage truck pulls in, that there's enough space for them to come in, open that gate, or whatever the means by which the gate would be, opened so that they can get in, again, not block University. So I kind of feel like that circulation maybe needs to be addressed to accommodate large vehicles and mail delivery and so forth coming in. Is that reasonable?
I think that is fair if you were to include some of that in a condition. I will note, before we get too far into the weeds on some of that, we haven't held the public hearing just yet. But
Got it.
nonetheless,
Thank
that
you.
is fair
Good reminder.
to
Yep, thank
address
you.
some of those in conditions.
Okay.
And then Commissioner Knobloch?
Yeah, I just think it's essential at this, since we're doing site plan, that we need to have, as it's been mentioned, we need color samples and material, because I know they require approval, but also, like, as some people are saying, I'm looking at some of these pictures and some are saying it's black. To me, it looks like a dark gray, because a lot of the colors I see is a lot of the rooms that I'm painting in my house right now. So I think it's essential to have some solid material and some color palettes to help, not just the images, but I think that's essential to have for us in our decision-making too. So that's all I wanted to add.
Anything else before we have a public hearing?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heikkila?
I don't know if this is appropriate here or not, but I'm going to suggest, I hope that the council looks clearly at the color scheme and how it's, you know, how it can be amplified or made to look, I mean, it's just my opinion, but more attractive.
Well, I would think for the most part, the council is looking at approval of the type of material. They're gonna leave the color choice as part of our purview. So I'm not sure that leaving color choice to the council is the right route to go here.
I think in this case, the council, because of that wording for HDR, when there's a variation in colors or materials, that would all be part of the council approval there. I don't know if, Matt, you have other opinions? Something we can definitely work on to get to the council, to just be more clear on the specific colors used. I'll just note, like, a material board is not a required thing right now for an application. We definitely work with people to get that information, but it's not a requirement in their submission.
All right, we need the public hearing, so at this time I will open a public hearing in planning case 23-9, the site plan for Cedarwood at 9730 University Avenue Northwest, Value Homes LLC. Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Come to the microphone.
Excuse me, I mentioned earlier the fence. It sounds like the fence is a plan, so it's good for us.
All right. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else wish to speak public hearing?
Chair Schwartz, I did receive an email before the meeting. They weren't able to make it to the public hearing. I just have a copy of their comments for the record. For John Reef, that owns one of the four plexes that's just south of this property. And he shared a similar concern around providing a fence, was essentially his summary of the comments too, just to help reduce foot traffic. So I think it's been kind of addressed that we talked tonight, but I will just share that copy of the comment for the record.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And the last call for public hearing. Anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, close the public hearing. All right, commission. I still think it's important that
Take mine, I can look at Mary's, that's.
I think it's important that we figure out what's going on with this trash collection. I'm not satisfied with having a large garbage truck backing out onto University Avenue.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey.
I hear you, hear what you're saying. I thought I heard someone say, though, that it was going to be a kind of a pad area, it might require a 2 or 3 point turn to get turned around, not backing out, but a pad, have to be a fairly sizable one, but to allow for a 2 to 3 point turn and then get turned around and maybe pick up the garbage cans on the right side of the truck on the way out.
Well, the driveway is 24 feet, which I think is what was mentioned earlier. I think it's going to take a heck of a lot more than 24 feet for a garbage truck to make even a three-way turnaround.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Geisler.
question for either Mr. Kroll or Mr. Brown here. As far as the variance request and the request to the city council, if we were to table this item tonight to address some of these other items, those could still move apace without our action tonight? Those could still seek approval in other area as going forward?
Mr. Buccione.
Mr.
I
Chair.
see your wheels turning.
The variance likely, Commissioner Geisler. I would say the city council question, probably not.
The city council regarding the building materials, I think we'd want to hold off. The rezoning can go forward
Yeah.
as a separate application. But yes, the consideration of the building materials, I think it would be our recommendation if you were to table it, that we just push that off until the site plan actually were to be approved.
So to restate that, the variance request could continue forward, but we would hold back on the materials request until we approve the site plan.
Yeah.
Would be the
I think that
recommendation.
would be our recommendation for bringing this forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Schmolke.
If we do that, I guess one thing I would suggest is that we're a little bit more clear on what the recommendation is for the changes in the materials. So if it's specifically that we want the pillars lightened up, the doors lightened up, we should be giving some feedback based on prior guidance in similar situations. So it's just not an open book and nobody knows kind of what to bring forward next, I guess. So I would make that suggestion. So I don't have
My
any specific.
thought is, as long as we see colors, maybe we don't need to change the colors of the pillars, if we're satisfied with what the color actually is. We've heard that it's black, we've heard that it's kind of a grayish something or other. As long as we see what the actual colors are, maybe we'll be satisfied with how they look.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Schmolke.
I think the renderings fairly depict what the colors will be. I think what we've heard is that some contrast, some dimension would be appreciated to kind of reduce some of the solid black perhaps. So that's where I think that's what I've heard through the comments, is that that's some of the feedback given. So I think it'd be good if they're going to bring materials then to come prepared with those suggestions, if that's what we're going to ask. Otherwise, if we're good with the way it is, the rendering clearly has it as more very consistent color all the way across. And if you want something different, then I think we should be more clear.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heikkila.
kind of going off what Commissioner Schmolke, I seem to recall years back when there was an apartment building being built behind Hoover or by Hoover School. And there was considerable discussion by the council as far as varying colors even and so forth for each unit, so it didn't all look monochrome. Just,
Well, I think most of us are probably aware of or have seen the apartment buildings down in Fridley on East River Road by the river, where basically every apartment is a different color, and I don't want to see that. That's just my opinion.
Those are the Georgetown ones.
The Georgetown
correct?
apartments, correct.
Yeah, I agree. That's not a good look. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we just established even tonight that these will be cedar wood, so everybody knows what kind of cedar looks like, it's super light, and then these would be a white oak looking, just like this, then I guarantee you guys will love the look of it when it's done. It'll lighten it up a lot.
Did you say white oak?
Yeah, so a white oak like this. This
Okay,
is
yeah.
basically white oak, and then, so we would do the doors in white oak, and then these would be the cedar wrapped columns, and that'll give it a great look.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
For the applicant here, I think actually in general, I agree with all of that. I think that's great. The one spot that we haven't talked about is the door on the balconies. That unrelieved black stripe is actually the only piece that I'm really hung up on aesthetically. The rest of it I'm okay with. But I think if you made that door to match your front door, that deck door, that would break that up a little bit, and then it's not just a solid black stripe
Oh,
through the
yeah.
middle of the door. You could also do window frames, you could do other things too. I mean, there's, not to just pick one. But I think that just solid black stripe down the middle certainly is a pretty hindering look there. But in general, I'm actually okay with the color palette as it stands. I would just like to have a little bit more of a relief on the color just for the monochromatic stripe would be my ask. I like the lower floor, I like the upper floor as they stand. I'm okay with that. I actually don't think we need to change anything on the walk-in entry side as much, because there are aspects, there are accents on each story there. But that just straight black stripe on the backside was what was holding me up a little bit. And if I may continue to a slightly different item, have you had a chance to review the sustainability comments that were provided with the packet yet?
Somewhat.
The one thing I would just advise you to consider, especially since it's new construction, put in some wiring for an EV charger. You don't have to do the chargers, but just wire it so that if they do at a later point, since it's a rental unit, that's a large constraint for people, is to be able to charge at home when they're renting. And so especially with garages, that would be,
Yeah, and I put that in there. We're doing a 30 amp EV charger in each garage.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Yep. And I don't mind if we say that the exterior door, or doors, I don't know if, like, this could be left black or not, but, you know, if we wanted to say a white oak color for the deck doors, that's fine with me. And even the cedar wrap columns in the front entry, I think that'd be great. And then we can visit this being black or white oak, either way. But yeah,
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Mr. Bucciccone,
Among the recommended conditions from staff is that the exterior materials are approved by the city council. Now, that question mainly focuses around the use of a different siding. I don't want to say fancier, but it's fancier siding than what is normal in this situation. But the condition that is recommended allows the city council to examine this in much the way we have started going down the road of here with that condition of your approval. So there is an opportunity for the applicant and the city council to talk about that. And I think Commissioner Schmolke saying this is what our concerns were, I think that's a good way to handle that here.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schmolke.
what I like about that too is, personally, I don't mind the rendering as it is. I mean, so I think you're going to get different opinions when you're looking at pictures too, so I guess I like that recommendation.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey.
I agree with that approach, and I think the city council, it's part of the conditions, but they will be alerted as to what we're thinking and talking about here tonight. So pass it on to them.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heikkila.
I have one more quick, small thing, I hope, regarding pets. There's not a pet area, people are just going to be required to pick up after their own. The pets won't be outside, you know, they'll be leashed or something, and they'll have to pick up their own poop, and so forth.
yeah, we could have, what I have in some other spots is little kind of pet stations with the little baggies and garbage in the back here. We could put, I was planning on putting some of those in just to help with that. But generally, yeah, they're leashed, and then it's really amongst the residents in the community to figure out, like, how do we deal with our pets together, and do they ever let them off the leash or not? I know that they should be leashed, and it depends though. Like, when I picked up the other property, a couple lots down, you know, there was a lot of pet friends and pets, and they all love each other, and they're just running around free and petting, you know, and so I would definitely, they've got to take responsibility there and within their own community, but I can certainly put a few of those little doggy stations with the baggies and the garbage, and then we can pick it up. The garbage can, that is. But we're not gonna pick up their dog's poop.
No, yeah, I understand, and it's sad that everything needs to be regulated, but, even going to the Andover Dog Park, which I do frequently, you see the dogs wrestling and fighting, and some of them getting more aggressive, and I just want to make sure that, everything's going all right, I guess.
So I still have two questions for you, sir, and one is, you are committing to a privacy fence all the way around?
Yep. With the driveway being open for now.
No gate on the driveway, being just open?
Yeah. I think
That was gonna be my other question, is if you were to gate the driveway, who would control access to the driveway? If a guest was coming, how do they get in? Delivery people, how do they get in?
Yeah,
So as long as you're leaving the driveway fully open, that solves that issue.
yeah, I agree 100%.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Schmolke.
I'll make a motion. In planning case 23-9, I'll make a motion to approve the proposed site plan with the following conditions. Do we need to cite number 1, being that has been approved, just a clarification? Okay, I'm sorry, got it, thank you. The applicant receive approval in planning case 23-8 to rezone the subject property to high-density residential. The applicant receive a variance from the Board of Adjustments and Appeals for the setback along University Avenue. The applicant receives city council approval of the proposed exterior materials, which include engineered wood siding. All engineering comments be addressed, all sustainable comments be considered. The applicant enter into a site security agreement with the city. All signage is subject to separate sign approval. And I believe we have an 8th, which is that the applicant will work with staff to address the circulation comments raised by the commission this evening to accommodate large vehicles.
Second.
Motion by, excuse me, motion by Schmolke, second by Geisler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. This is a decision by the Planning Commission on the site plan. Can be appealed to the City Council within 10 business days if someone so chooses. And the City Council consideration of the exterior materials will be at their May 16th, 2023 meeting. Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Our next case is planning case 23-10, a site plan for Take 5 oil change at 11851 Hanson Boulevard Northwest, BDH Architecture. Mr. Kroll.
All right, so in this case, the applicant's requesting site plan approval for a new 1,800 square foot express oil change station. And this is an update from planning case 22-10 to reflect changes to the building design. So we're talking about the site here at 11851 Hanson Boulevard. Again, this is zone general commercial. If you all recall, you had approved a site plan for a Take 5 oil change in June of 2022 under planning case 22-10. Site plan approval is good for a year, at which point applicants are working to submit building permits and starting construction. We have maybe heard that the project was no longer moving forward and now seems to be proceeding again, but they do have a couple of different building design changes that staff felt were significant enough to bring it back through site plan approval. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. There was a plat approved by you all back in 2021 as well, so this site kind of shares with the new Shine Car Wash that is open, and this is just kind of outlining the Take 5 site here for you. So there aren't really any changes to the building location in this site plan compared to what was shown in 2022. So it meets all of our setbacks, lot coverage requirements, building coverage. Really, the changes are coming into some of the building design. One of the conditions that was added on last year's approval was to provide a sidewalk connection and crosswalk to the public sidewalk on Hanson Boulevard, and the applicant is showing that here on this new site plan. So I guess that's kind of the one main change is there will be a sidewalk that connects the building entrance to that public sidewalk along Hanson Boulevard. This is just a site plan of the overall site, but just to kind of show you what that is going to look like in relation to the Shine Car Wash. Kind of, again, very similar circulation, or the exact same circulation the first time. So both of these driveways on Hanson and Northdale are right in, right out. Cars entering the site off of Northdale would pass through the site to access the oil change station on the north end, and then vehicles entering off of Hanson would turn right, and pretty easy access into the garage there. They're showing kind of stacking space for at least 9 vehicles, and staff felt comfortable, or again, it meets those kind of minimum dimensions and it meets that standard. There are 18 parking stalls on the site. Our code would require at least 10 stalls for the oil change, and we don't have a parking minimum for a car wash. And so these 18 stalls are kind of shared with both Shine and Take 5, and again exceed that minimum that we would require, and staff were comfortable with this agreement. This is the landscape plan, again meeting our minimum code requirements and providing screening, and just to help enhance the image of the development. I don't believe there were, if I recall, some of the concerns maybe back in 2022 were kind of dependent on where that sidewalk would be located and if that would impact some of the landscaping at all. And here they're showing that they can fit both the sidewalk and landscaping along the building here and meet the minimum requirements. So this is just to kind of highlight for you the changes. So what you see on the left is what they're proposing here in this site plan approval. And this was just an image of what was shown with that 2022 approval. They're using a mix of brick and EIFS. And then the lower portion of the building does have utility brick and a precast wainscoting band. And then the west elevation that you see here is what would be facing Hanson Boulevard. Still has that projection, kind of facade projection over one of the garage doors, and then they're proposing a more modern sunshade that actually wraps around the side of the building here, just to kind of give it a more modern aesthetic. The brick parapet up here will also have a cornice detail that's pretty much the same as what would have been on this kind of tower that they initially proposed in 2022. Again, this top elevation here is what you would see from Hanson Boulevard, and this is actually where vehicles are exiting out of the facility. And then this east, or kind of elevation here at the bottom, is where vehicles are entering, and that's kind of on the backside there that no one's really seeing unless you're driving up to the service. Proposed side elevations, again, it's using all of the same colors and materials as the previous design. We actually didn't have color renderings for the 2022 approval here, but you're just seeing that difference in the brick parapet with that cornice design versus that original kind of tower that was part of the 2022 site plan. There are a few minor changes to the proposed floor plan on the inside of the building. I believe maybe there were some comments last year about that mezzanine level. My understanding is that there is actually no longer a mezzanine here, and that they just kind of reformatted around the restroom and kind of the employee space on this end. But again, it's still a service where vehicles are driving up, they're not leaving their vehicle while it's being serviced, and then are driving out, you know, I think ideally within kind of like 15 to 20 minutes, a pretty quick turnaround for oil change and some services. These were renderings provided by the applicant, again, to kind of show you that brick detail with the cornice detail on top of the parapet, that modern sunshade. Again, this is what you would see from Hanson Boulevard. And then this is the kind of the side and the back end that you would be seeing kind of from Shine Car Washer while you're on the site. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the proposed site plan, and we have a couple of conditions listed there, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. Commission, any questions for Mr. Kroll?
Chair Schwartz.
Commissioner Knobloch.
I have a question for Mr. Kroll. I have a question, and it's a pet peeve of mine all the time, but as everyone knows, but on the recommendation, number 5, a bike rack be provided on site. Now, is that a condition or a recommendation, if you could clarify that for me? Like, would there be a lack of approval if the applicant decided that they don't need a bike rack to an oil change place?
No, I think it's just a condition there that we would work with the applicant to see if that makes sense on the site or where that location would be, but I would not disapprove a site plan because there wasn't a bike rack there.
So it is a recommendation. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I believe there is a requirement for a commercial property to provide bicycle parking. There isn't a number of spaces or anything that is needed, but there is a requirement for some bicycle parking. So that is part of the reason that condition is in there. And in general, there could be employees who live close by and bike to the site or something like that. I realize it's a little unusual for an automotive business. May not need a lot of bicycle parking, but there is a requirement of at least some.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Bicycles
Casey.
need oil too?
Mr. Kroll, maybe you don't know, but maybe the petitioners could chime in. Tell me, what's the pay station here? Where's the customer ponying up? Is it inside?
Yeah, I think the applicant can probably best
Okay.
describe that again,
That's
just
fine.
kind of to give you an idea of that circulation for the customer.
Any other questions for Mr. Kroll?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heiko.
is this the same, I hope this is legitimate here, but is this the same, is this owned by the Shine people, or is this a whole separate?
My understanding it is separate, and so that's where that one condition with any kind of access, like shared cross or access agreements we would have, but with that plat, it's owned separately, but there is shared parking between both properties.
But they are separately owned?
Yeah.
Okay, and then when you showed the view from Hanson, in my opinion, and again, my opinion, the Shine is so overly signed, and then to see this oil change, is that what the real sign would be like? That it's up against a park there, and
Yeah, so signage is, that approval comes through separate sign permits that are reviewed administratively by me. Just in general, in this area, that the applicant is allowed wall signs on 2 walls. And then on each of those walls, it's 40 square feet or 10% of the building up to 200 square feet. So these kind of 2 walls, here again, this is what you'd see from Hanson, and then this is kind of facing that internal parking lot on the site. Again, would be approved separately from this site plan approval, but they would be allowed signage on 2 walls that they're showing.
Any other questions for Mr. Kroll? Anything the petitioners would like to add, please come to the microphone, give your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Tim Eden. My address is 15706 Highland Heights Drive in Minnetonka, Minnesota, 55345. I'm representing the ownership group. We're franchisees of Take 5 Oil Change. Currently, we have 3 stores in the metro area, one in Blaine, one in Brooklyn Park, and one down in Hopkins. This would be our 4th store. To address the question about flow, Mr. Cole, if it takes 15 to 20 minutes to get an oil change, I'm gonna be on my staff, because it better be faster than that. It's 10 minutes. Customers stay in their vehicle, they enter in. We have a small podium kiosk area where the employee will stand, get the information from the customer, help them choose what products and services they want, ring it all up, and then there's a credit card machine right there, or if they want to pay cash, the customer never leaves their car, is the intention.
Do you have a kiosk person for each lane?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not operating all lanes at once, but,
Only if it's busy enough?
Yeah,
But if it's
yeah.
busy enough, yeah, we'll operate all 3 lanes at the same time.
and is it one car in the stall at a time?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, and then the others would wait outside until they were directed in by an employee and positioned, and
And you've got doors that come up and down and?
that's correct. Yep, each of the doors have their own opener, and so we open and close them as weather dictates. If we can keep them open, we love to. It's a better work environment when you get the fresh air in there, but, yeah.
Thank you.
How do your employees access the pit area?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're a little different than some other oil change facilities you've been to. We utilize what's called a shallow pit. So it's 3 feet wide, 3 feet deep, and 10 feet long. And so when an employee brings a car in, they leave about 2 feet of space in the front of the pit, and then they actually will walk down 3 steps, and then they just crouch underneath the vehicle and change the oil. Everybody thinks it's crazy. The employees actually love it because they get to interact with each other, they get to trade spaces, and part of the reason we can do such a fast oil change is because they can slide under there, they come back up, they can move on to another vehicle, and then we have another person slide under there, do a safety check to make sure everything's done correctly, and they come back out as well.
So does the person that drains the oil underneath, is he the same person that adds the oil?
Can be, yeah, he or she can be. Otherwise, we have call-outs and everything, so really it's a 2 or 3 person crew that'll work on a car. We don't allow anybody to change the oil on their own. It has to be at least 2 people. So whoever does the oil change underneath, they can pour the oil, but they cannot double check to make sure that everything was done correctly. So another person's gonna come, they're gonna check that the oil was added to the car, they're gonna slide under there, they're gonna check an oil filter, an oil plug, and make sure everything's tight, functioning correctly.
And do you provide services other than oil changes?
We do, yep. All of them maintenance. We don't do any repair items. So we do oil changes, we'll do coolant exchanges, we'll replace engine air filters and cabin air filters and wiper blades, and that's all we do. So take 5 things.
No tire rotation?
No tire rotations.
What was that last thing you said?
Windshield wipers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
just replace the windshield wiper blades.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Heikkila?
I'll hold you to 10 minutes.
Yes, please do,
I
please do.
have, you know,
Yeah,
I had noticed on my wife's car yesterday that the oil change is due.
okay,
And I
okay.
have sat for 40 minutes, and you can't go forward, you can't go back, you can't get the heck out of there.
Right,
So
right.
10 minutes sounds really good.
It is. So if we're not the friendliest and the fastest oil change in town, I'd like to know about that. So if you want to see what our services look like, would love to have you come over to the Blaine location. That's probably the closest to here, or go over to our Brooklyn Park location, and you can see it in operation.
And how do your prices compare to your competition?
That's a great question. So we're about the same price as like a Valvoline or a Jiffy Lube. It just depends on, we're within a couple bucks of each other.
And as far as brands of oil,
Mm-hmm.
do you have a variety?
Yeah, we do. So we carry Duramax oil, which is one that not a lot of people have heard of here in the Twin Cities area, but it's actually the number one oil brand used by service centers. We also carry Mobil 1 for those who want Mobil 1. We carry Shell Rotella for diesel vehicles. And then we also carry a different Euro oil called Lube Tech Endurance, which is a local company here that we partner with.
Yeah, the GM vehicles use Dexos.
You know your vehicles. I'm impressed. This is great. Yes, so we have Dexos certified oils. And our staff are trained. So if you bring in a GM vehicle, 2011 or newer, we're gonna know it needs a Dexos oil. We're gonna recommend to you, Mr. Chair here, you could use this oil or this oil. Both of those meet the Dexos requirements. Based on your driving habits, we'll make a recommendation to you. But we wanna make sure that you have the right oil in your vehicle.
Thank you.
So we don't sell, we recommend. And that's really important because nobody likes getting upsold on things that they don't need.
Any other questions for petitioner at this time?
Just to clarify, the Take 5 refers to the number of services you offer.
It's the brand name. It just makes it easy. We do a lot of things in fives because our employees can remember it, our customers can
Well, I
remember
was thinking 5 minutes, but that would be cutting it too close.
If you'll indulge me for 1 minute, it originally was called Take 5 Oil Change because it was a 5-minute oil change.
I see.
But what we ended up realizing back in the 90s when they really moved to the rapid auto change was 5 minutes didn't allow for the type of service that we wanted to provide to our customers, the type of education we wanted to. So can you perform an oil change in 5 minutes? Oftentimes you can, but it's making sure that the customer understands here's the type of oil, here are some of the other services that we offer, here's how we would recommend that you take care of your car. So we went to 10 minutes. So now it's take 5, take a break. Sit in your car.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it for you.
Thank you.
Any
Yes.
other questions right now? All right, thank you. We may have more in the later
Absolutely.
on.
Thank you.
All right, we do need to have a public hearing in this matter, so at this time, I'll open a public hearing in planning case 23-10, a site plan for Take 5 oil change at 11851 Hanson Boulevard Northwest, BDH Architecture. Anyone wish to speak to public hearing? Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and limit comments to the commission. Commission, thoughts, concerns?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Schmokey?
I think that it was a great presentation. I think I'd like to actually move direct to making a motion. In planning case 23-10, that we approve the proposed site plan with the following conditions: that all engineering comments be addressed, all sustainability comments be considered, the applicant enter into a site security agreement with the city, the applicant provide a copy of shared access and utility agreements to city staff, a bike rack be provided on-site in the area that is convenient to the building entrance. All signage is subject to separate sign permit approval.
Second.
Motion by Schmokey, second by Casey. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that while I do enjoy, and I think this new design is perfectly fine, I'm a little disappointed to lose the tower, to lose the better aesthetic appeal that was there. I can probably guess why, but just in general, I'm okay with the design as is, but it is a little disappointing to lose the design that we saw before. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This is a decision by the Planning Commission and can be appealed to City Council within 10 business days if someone so chooses. Otherwise, good luck.
Thank you.
And do you have a time frame on when you would be opening?
We're hoping August, September, so we're in that range.
Good luck. All right, next case, planning case 23-11, a preliminary plat for Fidelity Edition, Midwest Fidelity Partners LLC. Mr. Kroll.
All right, our final case tonight, the applicant's requesting preliminary plat approval for a two-lot subdivision that's related to the redevelopment of a vacant property for commercial development. So we're talking about 2085 Northdale Boulevard. If you'll recall, just this past November, there was site plan approval for a Silver Star car wash at this location. And in that staff report and application that they were interested in kind of, because the car wash was only going to occupy a portion of that site, actually looking at doing a plat or a lot split to allow an additional commercial development on that property. So that is this plat that you're seeing here today for that two-lot subdivision. So the total size of the site is 2.9 acres. The lot for future development would be lot 1 here on the left, and that's about 1.26 acres. And then Silver Star Car Wash, that's currently being developed on lot 2 here on the east or on the right, and that's about 1.68 acres. This area is zoned community commercial, and we would require a minimum of 1 acre for individual lots, which both of these lots comply. I'll note there is a 30-foot utility easement across lot 1, which could not have a permanent structure built over that easement, but it still leaves a fair amount of development, and I have some images to kind of show that building pad area. And even when Silver Star brought their site plan forward, we had asked them to do kind of what they envision that other side of the site could look like. This is just an aerial of that plat, if it's helpful, to just kind of see the former Cons building there on site, to just kind of give you an idea of where this lot would be split. So again, that area highlighted in blue would be the new lot that's open for development, and then the other half, the unshaded part, is where the Silver Star Car Wash is being developed. This was the site plan for Silver Star Car Wash, just again to kind of show you what it's going to look like there. On the right side, one of the conditions as part of their approval is that they fully enclosed their lot with curb and pavement, just to avoid any kind of dumping or weird access on that site if it would be a while before it's developed, which they are doing. And then they're also going to be mulching and sodding that lot, so it won't just be dirt sitting there until it's developed. This is that area where a building pad could go. So again, this is kind of outside of the building setbacks that are required on the lot. It's avoiding that 30-foot easement that goes across the lot. And then there's also an additional easement on the kind of north side of that lot. So really this here, and they're showing that it's still over 20,000 square feet of a location where a building could go here. And then this was provided as an example site plan from Silver Star of where a smaller commercial building could fit here and meet some of the parking and a drive-through facility. So there isn't a formal proposal at this time to develop Lot 1. This is, again, just an example, and the approval that we're looking at tonight is just a plat to subdivide this lot. So kind of with that, our staff recommendation is to recommend approval for the preliminary plat, and then with the conditions that engineering comments be addressed, and then that the applicant provide any kind of shared or cross-access agreement to city staff when that time comes. So I guess maybe the one final thing I forgot to mention, if you recall, access to this lot 1 would be from this kind of frontage road driveway that's being built on Silver Star's lot. So they would have to access through Silver Star's site to get to this additional lot. And so there we would work with them to get those agreements on our city files. So I think with that, if you have any questions, happy to address them.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. Commission, any questions from Mr. Kroll at this time?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Kroll, could you pull up the colored rendering right there?
Yeah.
So the storm sewer line that's running through what will be Lot 1 there, It's not down the middle of the easement. Is that any concern? Because the easement is off kilter off the line of the storm sewer. Does that adjust where that easement is? Are we confident where those lines are? Is really the ultimate point of my question of, is that easement aligned center line of the storm sewer or not?
Yeah, I guess I don't recall, usually if it was off, our engineering staff usually kind of flag that. And in some of their comments, they more just wanted to actually add some easement on some of the property lines that weren't shown. And so that'll be shown on the final plat, and actually received that from the applicant already. So I guess I'm not aware of any concerns there if it is not quite aligned.
Yeah, it seems that there's survey pins that pretty clearly denote what it would be.
Yeah.
But it doesn't align. My concern is that it shifts it further into the property, limiting the buildable area a little bit, closer to Highway 10 there,
Sure.
so.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm not aware whether that is incorrect. I would assume not, with having a professional surveyor doing the plat and stuff.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Geisler, what I'm seeing does square with that, the 30-foot wide utility easement that's shown on the plat. It says just per Village 10 second edition.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is the center line of that easement is not along the storm sewer as it's drawn. It's shifted towards Silver Star by presumably about 7-8 feet there, it looks like. But, and kind of, yeah, you can especially see it on that last drawing you had up there, Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if it might be off here in their plan set, which isn't like the official plat, I guess this is what we should go off of, and I don't know if there's the same concern there.
So we should assume the easement, though, follows the center line of the storm sewer? That's what we would assume? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Buccione.
What it reads like to me, Commissioner Geisler, is there's an existing easement from when this was initially subdivided that the line you're concerned about sits in. Now, if there's additional work that needs to be done with easements, we actually have a legal secretary that's gifted at this, so she'll make sure we're square.
Perfect.
And she'll probably yell at me if we're wrong. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Smoky.
I just want to clarify that the landscaping for the developing lot is not going to be impacted by this split.
That,
The line kind of goes right there. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
that's still
yeah.
planned for.
yeah, that's correct, and I think they kind of left that open, you know, like what would be impacted whenever Lot 1 is developed is the kind of curb and pavement that you see here, this, what is going to be a turnaround for Silver Star in the meantime until this lot is developed, that would be impacted. And I would imagine whoever develops that will just kind of finish this island kind of across there. I think it was just meant to like maintain some flexibility depending on what gets developed
Okay.
there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, do we have anything from the petitioner?
I don't think so.
No?
All right.
All right, do need to have a public hearing, and we'll open a public hearing in planning case 23-11, the preliminary plat for Fidelity Edition, Midwest Fidelity Partners LLC. Anyone wish to speak to this public hearing? Anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, close public hearing and limit comments to the commission.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Kroll, if you could go back to that site you just had up there, the one more, that one.
Yeah.
So as I made my point, I think if that line does shift, that becomes less than 20,000 square feet of buildable area. That's really where I'm getting at it. My concern is it limits the future buildability of this site. However, we've seen much smaller buildings put up. The Caribou Cabin is a perfect example, so I don't think that's a big problem at the end of the day, but I think it's worth calling out that it does that's a pie slice all the way along that, which can take quite a bit of area out. But with that said, I would move approval in 23-11 with the conditions as listed.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Schmolke. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. This is a recommendation by the planning commission and a decision by city council at their May 2nd, 2023 meeting. Good luck. And moving on to other business. Mr. Kroll.
Yeah, so we don't have any formal land use applications, so it is looking like we won't have a May Planning Commission meeting. So not too much to report.
Okay.
Disneyland, Canada.
Vacation.
All right, commission have anything else?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Third.
Motion by Casey, second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.